Kia ora koutou, and welcome to another edition of South Pacific Muscle. I've got today Tom Shaw, IFBB Pro, and my man Mike here. And Mike, you'll notice I've dressed up for the occasion. I took a leaf out of Tom's book, got my hair done, got dressed. What are you thinking?
Oh, you look flash, mate.
You want to?
Hey, tell you what, smaller head makes the shoulders look wider too, right?
I know. I only half did it though, because check this out. Still got my gym tights on.
Oh, yeah.
So semi-flash, you know. That was
at least you've got pants on. At least you've got pants on, bro. There's nothing worse than a Zoom meeting with no pants on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, look, tonight we're going to cover off the NZIFBB Nationals. So I'm really excited. Like for me, like the Olympia is the Super Bowl of the year. So I figure the Nationals are at least, you know, equivalent of an All Black test. And hey, the following day we've got an All Black test and up against Aussie. Any predictions on that one, guys?
I mean, last one was pretty close, wasn't it? So
yeah, man, it was too close. It was tied up. Honestly, I think we're going to come back and smash them, but that's just me. Thoughts, Mike?
Eden Park, mate. We haven't lost there in since 1986.
Yeah.
But we just kicked out of the country. We'll just pick a whole new team if we lose.
All good. Right, bodybuilding, because that's why we're here.
Right.
Firstly, Alicante. So we had the European Pro last weekend. We did a bit of a review on that, and I think we did pretty well. We came in with Hollingshead at number one. I think we all agreed on that. Yeah. I think we had Rafa at number two. And thoughts on Rafa being beaten?
I've got to say, I was hopeful that Rafa would take it. I just really like his lines. I mean, I expected James to win, but I was hopeful that Rafa would, you know. And I could still go either way, you know. His separation was so much better, especially through his midsection and his legs. But, you know, you can see just the size and condition that Hollingshead had, you know, it's nuts.
What thoughts, Tom?
I mean, no doubt first place. James's legs were just... The proportioning and size of them was leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. I think they got it quite right in the top three, top four, just because Lucas is very, very... If you haven't seen him in person, unfortunately, I had the pleasure of competing in my lineup. I've never seen someone so peeled and so dense, so I think they got it quite right. But like you said, Rafa definitely has that nice flowy, those lines. I think maybe 5-10 more kilos on that frame is definitely something there, definitely someone pushing that top spot at pro shows that they sit in.
Yeah, potentially I think if Hollingshead wasn't the winner, you know, if Hollingshead wasn't in that show, it may have gone a different way, because I think that, you know, when you look at it between him and Rafa, and then kind of the middle ground, you know, and so that leads to that obvious first, second, third, even though it's not scored like that. I think it sometimes there's some influence, but there was a controversy in the lower placings. I think there was some questioning around, was it fourth and fifth? I can't remember. Fifth and sixth, maybe.
Regan Grimes at fourth, and...
Samson pulled fifth, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. I think he looked fantastic. To be fair, you know, he looked really good. Yep.
Again, a little bit small when you see him next to the others, right?
Yeah.
Like on their own, they look sensational, but then just the kind of the other, you put him next to Hollingshead. Like I looked up Rafa afterwards because I thought, how big is he? And he's barely 5'11". I don't know if that was accurate or not, but they said he was about 245. Now, Hollingshead was 275, so when you're giving away 30 pounds, it's kind of tough. You know, on their own, look fantastic, put them next to each other and just a scaled-up version, right? So I imagine that's the same with Samson. You know, put another 10, 20 pounds on him, and he'll, the lines he's got make him very dangerous.
And they're heading into, I think, 2 weeks away now, a week and a half away to the British... I think the Two Bros competition, they're which is a qualifier for the 2021 Olympia. So that's going to be interesting to see. I don't know who will be up there. Probably Jamie Huber. I imagine Sampson probably.
And Mark Hector.
See if I can find the lineup for you.
Yep.
We'll see who's going through.
Was it Mark Hector? He plays quite highly too. Another British.
Wasn't he good? Wasn't Mark Hector? You know, like probably the That was that his debut? I'm fairly sure it was.
That was his pro debut, yeah.
What a debut. Awesome.
Definitely one of those guys who I think is just genetically gifted with those very, very full muscle bellies.
Absolutely.
Especially in his most muscular shot. That is a very, very, it's very full through the bicep, chest, and shoulder area. So it looks really nice and thick when he hits it.
And such a small little waist too. Right, so back to New Zealand, and we have got potentially the biggest show of the year. Usually is the biggest show of the year, but particularly this year where a lot of shows have been cancelled. As I said, really exciting to look forward to it. Got my flight booked, all good to go. I thought we would review the classic and the bodybuilding classes, really just kind of stick to what we know. I think that's probably where our speciality lies. Not too sharp on figure. I know, Mike, you're pretty good at judging those. But what I wanted to say was a big good luck to everyone who's competing, and good on you for grinding out a real tough year and getting up there. So to all the figure, the bikini, the physique, the women's physique classes that are getting up there, all the very best. And we're not missing you out. We'll be there. Well, I'll be there supporting, and Tom will too. But we're going to review the classes we know a bit about. Otherwise, we might be sort of pissing into the wind and guessing.
Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
I'm staying in my lane. Rightio. What we might do is bring up some of these guys in the classic, and what we'll do at the end of that, we'll have a shot at our predictions on them. So I'll just bring that up. Rightio. So NZIFBB, that's their page for those that want to follow the NZIFBB. First up in the classic, we've got Ethan Rowe. So Ethan won the South Islands, I believe. This is Ethan Rowe. A nice little back shot there. What do you know about this guy? Anyone know Ethan personally or competed against him?
No, unfortunately, he never come across him. From what I can see, though, structurally, very, very good. Nice and lean, small midsection, very, very wide shoulders. So it'll be interesting to see if in that time between that show and now he's maybe put on a bit more size and really trying to cap that weight limit of his class and brought the conditioning just that little bit more. That's that needed part for that Mr. New Zealand title.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point there, Tom. I mean, the South Islands were at the end of August, so, a relatively long time. I think then we had the Wellington show, which Wellington show was in September, and then the most recent, the Waikato, obviously. For those that aren't aware, the two Auckland shows, so the Pro-Am in March, April, and the Auckland show, which is usually around September, were both cancelled due to lockdown. So unfortunately, we haven't got any of the latest stage shots from the Auckland show, but be interesting to see those guys that had to peak once, going straight into the Nationals, versus those guys that have peaked for their regional show.
Yeah, as discussed after the South Islands, the only info I've got is sort of second hand, and that the guy he beat was pretty flash. So if he managed to beat him, then he's obviously pretty class competitor. I saw a little bit of the Facebook live stream. Just while we're at it, I mean, we want to keep things positive, but hey, NZFBB, if you get a tripod, that'd be useful to put your camera on and maybe turn the camera around so it's a landscape. The live stream on Facebook wasn't fantastic. The quality wasn't great and it was wobbling all over the place. But what I saw from that is the condition was sensational. The guy he beat, who trains at my gym, Dylan, he had ripped glutes, big in the upper body, needs a little bit more balance to his legs, but he was shredded, So this guy beat him, and it may well have been on balance, but I imagine his conditioning was also top-notch at that show. Couldn't really tell from the live stream, but I imagine it was pretty spot on to come away with that overall win. Yeah,
look, those live streams really hard. Like the last couple, I think it was the New York live stream was absolutely diabolical. Even the one from Alicante wasn't great. And when you see some photos, you almost wonder if you're looking at the same guy. So he's hoping that we get a good live stream for those that can't attend. And hopefully, being the Bruce Mason Centre, we should get some decent lighting there. So, I mean, that always plays a big part because, I mean, you even looked at last weekend and you sort of looked at Hollingshead and thought, oh, he's coming a little bit smooth. But then you look at a photo or someone else's video footage from their phone and absolutely different kettle of fish. So, right, we'll move on to Andrew Murray. And Andrew's a local boy from Napier. Andrew won the Wellington show. Mike, you know a fair bit about...
He's been around for a very, very long time. He competed, I would believe, at my first or second ever show, so back when I was 17. He was doing his thing back then as well.
To be fair, Tom, that's not that long ago.
Yeah, look, Andrew has been around. He has been a competitor in a number of federations. As we said, he's made his switch into the classic class, and I really think that class is something that, you know, he sort of found his home in that class. And again, I think I mentioned last time we spoke, you know, his physique's come a long way, and he's actually sort of peaking at this point, you know, in his career, which is really, really cool to see. Mike, your thoughts on Andrew?
Yeah, as discussed after the, it was the Wellington show that he won, wasn't it? Yeah. Really complete package, right? Nice narrow waist, thick, full muscle, quite balanced though, great symmetry. I mean, as you need for classic, and he's got the good shape for that. As I judged him probably 6-7 years ago in NABA, and he was good then, but he's even better now. And as you pointed out, Nathan, it's nice to see someone pushing into their 40s who just gets better and better. Let's hope for the rest of us, maybe.
Right, next up we've got Yusuf, so I'll just bring him up there. Now, Tom, you probably know Yusuf better than the rest of us.
Yeah, man. So Yusuf's been training up at the same gym as me. So I've been getting kind of a look at him every day. He went kind of dark and's gone over, I think, to be with his coach Denver for the last week. So I kind of saw him after Waikato's and how he was looking on the rebounds. I can tell you this, when he posed for me, he did not blow out at all. There was not a single ounce of added water or anything. He was damn tight. I think it was Tuesday that I saw him after the show. Had a little, he wanted to go through some mandatories with me just to see if I had any pointers for him. He was adamant and was very confident in the plan that Denver and him had established for the run into nationals. So I think it's going to be really interesting because he knows that he just needs to come a little bit more crisp, and that last little bit of filling out. And I think he's going to be very, very hard to beat if he brings that 100% package on the day.
Hey, Tom, I didn't realise he was coached by Denver. For those that don't know Denver Chamby, another one of our young guns, IFBB Pro, an absolute mass monster. How much are these guys getting now by having access to IFBB pros that have had exposure to international stages, international coaches, etc.? How much do you think it's lifting the game in New Zealand?
I mean, in the last couple of years, I know it's something I've been trying to build and trying to instill in a lot of the amateur guys. It was around a little bit when I was an amateur, but really is those guys reaching out. We may be the same age, we may be only a little bit older, but we know a hell of a lot. We've been around, we know what it takes, where to go. So these guys now, like Denver, he's doing an amazing job at really building that community of that brotherhood of bodybuilding back up in New Zealand and giving back to every single person who is willing to take some of the advice. Same with me. If I can give some advice out or some positivity, anyone who is competing, I try and lend a little bit of just do this, just do that, listen to your coach, just push that a little bit harder in the gym. I think with what we are creating in New Zealand, from what it's been the last couple of years, we're really building that pedestal to push the level in New Zealand back up and to get some really quality physiques coming out of New Zealand.
Cool. Mike, any comments about Yusuf?
Yeah, look, he's got a lovely shape, he's lovely physique. If he can bring that real hardness and tightness condition that he needs, yeah, he will be tough to beat. Can I just back up what Tom's saying there? Right along the way, early in our early days, I'm sure you're the same, Nath. We had people who were just willing to give us a hand, willing to just have a chat, talk us through our plan, and help us with our posing, all sorts. You know, never wanting anything in return, just paying it forward. You know, so one of the reasons we kind of got into this, Nath, is just to do the same thing. You know, just get a bit of info out, create a bit of positivity, and pay it forward. We don't necessarily want or need anything from it. Just here to help out. You know.
Yeah, man. Yep. Hey, look, Yusuf in the Waikato show obviously won that show. He beat in the overall Jordan Earl, and I want to have a look at Jordan because after the show I spoke to Jordan, and he had some real definite plans for the Nationals the minute he got off stage, I think, and it's really interesting to see the difference in two photos I looked at. So if I just bring that down here, if we look at the photo I think we looked at before the last show, this one here, and we looked at, it wasn't this photo, but this one here, you can see how sunken Jordan's face is at this point, which is just prior to the show, 9 days before the show. And he put a photo up just today, I believe, and I want you to have a look at this face and tell me what this face means to you.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. I spoke to him, look, I said to him, look, that's a face of a man who's faced some demons, who's been in some pretty dark places and had to do what he's had to do. And Tom, I believe you've spoken to Jordan in the last week or so.
Yeah, as like I just was saying, this year really has been about building relationships inside the sport, and Jordan is one of those ones that kind of stuck out. Me and him have been back and forth communicating. We even have a plan after everything's settled down after Nationals to spark up some trainings together and just move forward that way. Cool. He reached out and, you know, we're just talking back and forth about what it's going to take that last little bit. I know he messaged me 2 days ago and said he's dropped 5 kilos since the stage in Waikato. So this is definitely a man who wants that title, willing to drop that and put the hammer down like that. That's someone who wants it.
Look, whenever you see a face like that and you've been in the bodybuilding scene for a long time, you know that person's really done the hard yards. And I think that's the difference between, you know, you can come into a show with all the talent in the world and be 5% off, and someone who comes in at absolutely 100% and gave every inch, you know, everything that they had within inside themselves, and came in as the Walking Dead, can walk away with that title on condition.
I think we all know that feeling of having that face. We all know those last few days where you just don't even want to move anymore, but you still got to. So all props to him. Props to him for pushing that. I have no doubt that he is going to bring the best package that he has ever unveiled on the stage. So I'm excited to see this battle between him and Yusuf.
Mike, any comment?
Yeah, like I'd just like to commend Jordan for making that plan, having that plan, and sticking to that plan. You know, some people that kind of don't place where they want on a show, don't win, and kind of go drop their toys. Say, look, I'll go back into off season and I'll kind of have another crack at it next year. But to kind of make a plan, go, no, I can bring something better, put the work in, keep at it, and have a good crack at it. Well, good on them for doing that. You know?
Absolutely, and in short periods, you know, with that extra resolve, you know, you've seen some big changes. So we've seen guys like Rodriguez come from a second or third to winning a show. We've seen Ian Valere after his loss to Hunter. So we know you can turn those results around. So good luck to Jordan on the weekend. Hey, look, the next guy, this guy over here, also competed in Wellington and came third. Harry Booth. Just wanted to give a shout out to Harry. He emailed me and said what a fantastic podcast we had. So I really appreciated that feedback. And I thought, oh, look, Harry, I'll give you a shout out. And I had a look at the guy's physique, and he's actually a very, very good competitor. A very good set of legs on him. I'll just have a look if there are any other photos. Here we go. So another solid competitor in that physique lineup, in that classic physique lineup. So it's going to be a real battle up there, I think.
Yeah, nice narrow waist. He's quite long in the waist, right? Looks like he's got quite short legs, which makes him thicker. Well, that's good.
Anyway,
yeah, definitely wide through the upper. That lat spread in that pose looks quite good. It'll be very interesting to see how he matches up between. I think he's that in between of Jordan and Yusuf. A little bit thicker, but maybe a bit taller if I'm reading it right, and Yusuf a little bit smaller.
yeah,
And a bit more
5'7", I think he is. Right, look, let's move on now to the bodybuilding classes, and then we'll come back to some comparisons. So first up, we've got Dom. So Dom Fernati, who won the South Islands, and he's a good photo. Now, I don't know much about Dom. I think I said in the previous podcast that I thought he'd come in a bit smooth at the photos I'd seen, but then I looked at some other photos, and in this one here you can see he's got some good mass and he's got some good lines, and there's definitely striations popping out there, and there's some good separation in those quads. You guys come across Dom before?
I haven't, no.
No, this is the first, unless he's built his way up and he's really pushed himself onto the scene. No, I haven't.
I mean, there's a lot of mass on the guy.
He's unfortunate that we're looking at him just after we've seen Jordan, because he looks a little bit smoother compared to what we've just seen, but you can see he's got veins across his shoulders, he's separated through his shoulders, delts and traps, quads have got separation. Just perhaps a little bit of a film of water on his legs maybe to get super tight.
So this photo, I think, was back in August. So, you know, I guess it's whether he's managed to maintain his condition. I mean, he could come in better, he could come in sharper, or he could be the other way. So, you know, time will tell. Next guy we spoke about, and I think we talked about Nick a while back. So Nick Heatley. So he's up against the big boys. Won his show, obviously. Won the Wellington show, I believe. How do you think he's going to stack up against the big boys?
It's hard to say. I mean, seeing him by himself is one thing. But when you put them on stage next to each other, it's going to be that back and forth game. I think, unfortunately, this time around, he's just lacking that size. We are talking about Mr. New Zealand in bodybuilding, and bodybuilding, you want to be the biggest. You want to be the biggest, the leanest. Size is definitely a factor when you look at a bodybuilder. I think he's maybe a year of solid growth, just off of that clasping at that very top 1-2 spot in the overall.
Yeah, when we looked at him after the Wellington show, we saw how much progress he's made in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. So he's tracking really nicely. So yeah, another year or two and he's probably right there. From what we saw of those front shots, his legs don't quite have the sweep that they probably need to balance up. He's got good wide shoulders and he's thick through his delts and chest and lats, but a little bit more sweep in the quads. But as I said before, he's tracking really nicely because the last 3 years or so he's put on a lot of size, so he just keep going that way and he'll do well.
Yeah. I think you're right there, Mike. Working with Steve Orton, so no doubt, you know, it'll be a good experience for him getting up there against, you know, some of the guys he's perhaps looked up to, and he'll definitely be picking their brains along the way, and no doubt, you know, in years to come, if he's sticking at it, he'll be a formidable threat to that title. Now, Daniel won the recent Waikato show, and I hadn't come across Daniel before, but he's got a lot of mass. You know, he's got a lot of mass. He's got really wide legs through the adductors, and that I kind of looked at it and thought, jeepers, haven't seen those on many. You know, a lot of our amateurs, you know, they'll have a big wide sweep, but they're probably a bit weak through the adductor area, etc. You know, he's got that. You know, in these photos post-show, he looks grainy and quite hard. On the show photos, and I don't know if it's the lighting, he perhaps looked a little bit smooth. whether it was condition, whether it was a bit of water, probably a bit of both. Your thoughts on that?
This is possibly one of the competitors that I'm most excited to see. I've known Dan a while now, and I've seen Dan come up through the ranks, and he's surprised me a lot in the last year with how big he has got. And I mean, if this doesn't look like a good 212 pro from New Zealand in the future, I don't know what does. This guy has got those muscle bellies that are just waiting.
How tall is he, Tony? How tall is Daniel?
Oof. I don't want to upset him by saying how short he is. I think he's about 5'6", 5'7". He's a fair bit shorter than me. Okay. So when you put it in perspective, those muscle bellies, are the attachments are just a little bit shorter, which makes like those legs very, very wide. That arm very, very big, you know. I think if he nails his conditioning, and if he were to continue with this path, this will probably be one of our best 212 pros.
Awesome, cool. Mike, anything?
He just reminds me of Mark Anderson, who I know you posted a couple of pictures of on the Insta site the other day. Just that kind of compact, you know, muscle everywhere kind of look, and if he can nail that conditioning and get really hard and grainy, then yeah, it will be tough to beat.
Talking about hard and grainy and tough to beat, our friend Mr. Morris, Anthony Morris.
I mean, I have been training in the gym when he's been training in the gym daily, and I have got to say that him and his coach Phil have definitely been working on that conditioning. He is bringing that next level. I don't know how he looks at the moment because I know he's just finished his carb up. I think he's doing a very methodical and slow version, loading at the start of the week, having a few days to see how it settles, and then continuing with it. But definitely from what I've seen in the gym, there's not much fat left on his body. He is peeled.
Yeah, we had a look at a couple of photos probably 2 weeks ago, and there were striations where I didn't know they could. he really is. He's become really known for that, bringing that condition, and so I think he'll be bang on the mark. And there's a lot of mass on him. He's growing a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how he stacks up against our next guy, Paris, which I'll bring up now. Now, Paris, not one to put the photos up. He's been playing it pretty quiet, so there's not a lot of him. It's probably one of the last photos I think we've seen of Paris. And what I will say is Paris has competed for the last couple of years, and he's a mass monster. He's a big boy on stage. The last couple of years, he hasn't quite nailed his condition. He's been probably a fraction off in terms of conditioning, and always had that appearance of holding a little bit of water. His conditioning, from what I've seen, I know he's working with Jordan Earl, is probably, you know, in these photos, even the photos that were a couple of weeks before this, probably as good as I've seen him on stage. So he's definitely going to be interesting to see what package he brings this year.
Yeah, he's definitely grown. There's been multiple times at the gym where I've chucked my hoodie back on lately when he's around. No, Paris is a very, very good guy. He has worked his ass off. He knows. I remember last year around this time coming into nationals, I was giving him a kick up the ass to tell him, you know, conditioning wins the show. You've got to be conditioned. And I think the last 3 nationals, he's missed the mark every single time. And as an athlete, that can be very, very frustrating when you've put your time and your energy into a show. But seeing him attack this prep with Jordan, and the way, speaking with Jordan and hearing the methodical ways they're doing things and the structures that they're having, I think him and Jordan are a very, very good combination together. I will really be keen to see what he pulls on the day, if he's managed to get those deep separations in those legs, because that's possibly the thing that lets him down on his lower body, is just those last little lines coming in. But I know he's been working very, very hard to get what he wants.
So, Tom, can you might be able to give us a bit of an insight when it comes to something like that with Paris? Is that a knowledge deficit, like he's just experiencing and learning his body, or is that he feels like he needs to hold the mass and he's a bit reluctant to really get himself down? The kind of opposite of Anthony. Anthony seems to live and die by his conditioning, and he'll get shredded, and potentially holding a bit more size might serve him better. So is it a knowledge deficit or experience, or is it just that they kind of feel the need to hold on to their strengths more so than balancing themselves up?
I think it's a little bit of everything, really. It's not just one culminating factor that says this is the reason why and this is the reason why not. For me personally, I feel that those deeper stretches through movements help bring those separation lines in and help bring those extra bits. And I know Paris comes from a powerlifting background, so I feel there's a bit of a changeover in how you connect and how you fire through an exercise. I mean, he's possibly the only guy that I've seen use a pendulum squat for the first time ever, jump on it, load 820 plates on there, and just go for reps, and then go, well, that wasn't that hard. The guy is a freak. He's very, very big in person, very, very strong. I know Anthony has had it drilled in his head that, you just suffer. You bring the food down, you push the hard yards. I've seen Anthony in the gym supersetting for maybe now 4 or 5 weeks, and the guy goes hard. So I think what we'll see with Paris is under Jordan. I know Jordan is taking it a little bit differently. It will be teaching him those fundamentals of how to bring that conditioning down, how to suffer in those last few weeks where you really don't want to do those exercises or those trainings, but those are the ones that you have to kick ass and just bust your balls and push further than you thought you could. I think that's where he's gaining that knowledge now, and that should hopefully show this show and maybe the next few after that.
And when you're 4 or 5 weeks out and you're starting to feel flat, small, and you just got to keep pushing down and down and down and just have faith that the muscles will fill back up again. It's really tough when you kind of you want to keep your size, and you just got to keep pushing down and down even though you feel flat and small, So I mean, that's tough psychologically. Yeah,
4 to 5 weeks out though is not stage day, and this is what people have to realize. I mean, everyone thinks I go on stage at the moment gigantic. No, when I diet, the last 3 weeks is usually you're sucking in and you're getting low. You want to pull everything in, so when you do carb back up, the flatness is a good thing. Listening to Fawad on his podcast speaking with Jamie Johal, those flattening phases, if you stay flat for a few, but that's where you start burning that fat. When you're flat, you're going to burn through everything, so then you can fill back up. And that's what people just need to understand, is there's a fine line between everything.
Rightio. Hey, before we look at those overall photos, I was having a bit of a think earlier, and I thought, when I watch a show, I'm pretty much like the general public. I look and go, I like that physique, I think he should win. And I think the example on the weekend, with most people looking at Rafa and saying, what a great physique, that's the physique I'd like, and placing him ahead of Hollingshead. But in reality, it's not about that, and we're judged against particular criteria. And I feel that, those that don't know the criteria, and I'm pretty naive. Just last week, I asked Mike Kingsnorth about the IFBB Pro scorecards and how they worked, and he explained that they dropped the highest and the lowest scores off. And I think that knowing the criteria and have a better understanding would actually help me as a bodybuilder. So, Mike, I know you've done some judging with NABA, so I'll just get your thoughts on that, and then Tom, we'll hear your thoughts from an IFBB perspective.
Yeah, well, I was very, very sure of my opinions and my placings until I actually had a scorecard in my hand. So for the layperson, it's really easy. So I'm going, oh, you're first, second, third. Once I started sitting down and go, right, actually, this person's 14 weeks of preparation or longer has, weighs on my scoring. It becomes a lot more important. You start second guessing your opinions a lot more, and you really have to have a system to kind of unpack that. The criteria are around size, obviously, definition and separation, which often people interchange. Definition is your how much body fat's over the top of the muscles. The separation is how well they're separated out from the other muscles, so the sort of lines in between them. You've got your symmetry, which is the bone structure underneath, really, that kind of width of the shoulders to the waist. And then you've got your presentation. And different classes weigh those slightly differently, depending on which class you're in. So you're trying to apply those. I'm told that when you judge internationally, it's almost easier because a whole lot of guys go up there and go, right, no carbs, he's out. Right, that guy's shoulders, right, he's out. And you can kind of start eliminating people that way. When you're judging here in New Zealand, especially at the lower levels, it tends to be you kind of apples with oranges. You've got someone up there who's got really good size, but they're not as defined. You've got someone else who's really ripped, but they haven't quite got the size. You've got someone else with size and definition, but kind of a poor structure. So you're going, well, how much better is that person's definition than the other person's size? You're trying to kind of weigh things up that way. So it's not easy. You kind of have a system. Each person sort of operates in a different system. But for me, what I need to do is basically whatever's standing up in front of me, I need to put them first, second, third, fourth. How I do that is judges all do that differently. Usually I start with a sort of a good first impression, go through the symmetry round. If I need to, I can call them out again. When it gets really close and I'm struggling to kind of separate one out from the other for first, second, third, whatever, I'll start putting, as they go through the compulsory pose, I'll kind of go, right, he's best in that one, right, he's best in that one, and give myself, sort of tick off. And I'll go through this sort of 6 or 7 poses, and one will have, 4 ticks and the other one will have 3. Sometimes I've got to the end of that and gone, yeah, no, but I just like that other one more. And so I kind of go against what I've just done. So the system isn't foolproof, and it is very subjective. Judges also tend to have their own personal preferences. I know I'm a condition guy, not so much from my own presentation, but for what I like when I judge. Because deep down, I feel that's one thing that's more in your control. You've got someone who's got a poor bone structure. I feel bad marking them down. I mean, you have to, and if it's really poor, you do. But if someone comes in with really good conditioning, that says a lot to me. It says they've worked, it says they've prepared really well. So I do try and apply the criteria evenly, but I know that from my own personal perspective, if someone's better conditioned, that sort of leans in that direction for them. And I've been told by the head judge, because I learned a lot from Jim Pitt, who's had many, many years with NABA, and he's had me deliver judging courses to sort of train other judges, so I guess he respects sort of the way I do things as well. But he said to me, look, if that's your preference, if you've got a leaning towards condition, you go with that. You go with what you like. You can't let it get too far ahead. I can't give the tiny guy with poor structure who just happens to be ripped, I can't give him first place over someone who's more impressive, but I can go with my own sort of personal judgments. I don't know if I've cleared very much up for you, but that's just sort of the way I do things in the process that I use to try and separate them out. But often people get really worried, am I going to get marked down for this? Or if I do this pose poorly, am I going to get marked down? There isn't really any marking down. It's really just what order do I put them in? And so if you're presenting your physique in the best way you can, you're hitting your poses to make yourself look as impressive as you can, then that just hopefully puts you slightly ahead of the other person when it comes to me ranking those 1 through to 5 or 3 to 6 or however many are up on stage.
Well, I like what you touched on there, Mike, because it's quite a good way, I think, when I look at competitors and I'm just looking at, my predictions for a show, and I say, well, in the front poses, he wins this one and this one, but the other guy actually beats him in this when they're side on, and you kind of do a tally up and go, well, he beats him in the majority of shots, he's going to win that, and that's a rough shot idea. But Tom, coming back to the IFBB and NZIFBB, how does the judging take place?
I think it's very, very similar to Mike, I mean, very same experience. It's very easy to sit in the crowd and go, you know, 1, 2, 3. Especially with the females, when there's the bikini judging, you can in the crowd you go, that's 1, 2, 3. But when you actually sit on a judging panel, and it's your job to go, okay, I know that this person is first because they meet A, B, and C, but this person doesn't because they're not quite. It can be very hard to start pinpointing those characteristics that set that first, second, third out. And then, you know, so I think for people who sit back, you know, in the auditorium and they sometimes feel, oh, this person should have won, this person shouldn't have, you know, those disgruntled kind of fans. For IFBB, specifically NZIFBB, for bodybuilding, what I've tended to look for majority is a pleasing physique. You know, you want someone that's balanced, so muscular. You want to have someone who's not upper body dominant but no legs, and vice versa. They got to have, you know, not too many weaknesses in their physique, and if they do have a weakness, if they're going for that first place, then that person's weaknesses are, you know, less than the person who's second.
Yeah.
But definitely in both, I think in all federations, it comes down to the separation, the definition of those muscles. You need to have that size, but without that definition and without that separation, like we're talking about with Paris, if he can bring those things, that's what we look for. We look for those deep lines in those muscle bellies. We want to see that feathering in those quads and those glutes. We want to see when you hit shots, everything just pops, that striation through your chest. But we want to see no film of water, no fat. We want to see that crisp, dry physique. That physique that, you know, like Mike said, they've worked hard for that conditioning and they're going to be rewarded for it.
Look, it sounds like, and not having judged that, you know, you guys, it weighs heavily on you because, I mean, as competitors, you know that this person's given between 12 and 20 weeks to get ready for that show, and it's all hinging on you. So I think from us, a big thank you to those people that do give their time as judges, and respect to them. I've always sort of had the view after a show, if I didn't agree with placings, hey, I'm in a subjective sport. The judges saw what they saw. The other thing people don't take into consideration is the judges are right up close. They're looking up slightly different angle to what we're seeing on photos and webcams, etc. And, you know, what they see on the day is what they get. And, you know, it's pretty hard to, you know, unless you go back to, I think it was 81, to find a decision that you really struggle and you can't justify. But, you know, the judges do get it right based on the criteria most of the time. And when they don't, you know, they've certainly done their best to try and do so. So, you know, kudos to the judges. And, you know, as fans, we need to accept their decisions. And it's good to hear how it works because certainly as a competitor, if you know what you're being judged against, makes it a hell of a lot easier to get the target right. What we're going to do now is we're going to bring up some photos of the classic guys, and we're going to have a crack at trying to get our top, well, let's just try and get our top two, or our winner. I think we'll be doing pretty well if we do that because she's pretty competitive. So,
you know, I threw some of these together this afternoon, so apologies to the competitors if I didn't get your best shots or your best light. They're not all the same poses, but just tried to put them side by side so we can kind of take a look and see if we can see what's going to happen on the weekend.
Right, so as you said, these photos, you know, are from different shows. I'm just going to try and shuffle us around a bit there. If I can pull us down over here somewhere, it should do. Oh, sorry, Jordan, we're going to chop your legs off there a bit, buddy. So here we go in our classic physique. And as we say, different shows, but you get an idea of the guy's structure. We sort of know that, you know, the conditioning is from Yusuf is going to be tighter than what he's showing in that photo. What's your thoughts here, Tom?
Now, this is a hard one to call because obviously two of them are my friends. And I don't want to... I do think, though, that this classic physique title will be between them two. Now, like we've spoken about this whole podcast, it's about who comes in with that overall dryness and that conditioning with that fullness. I really think between both of them, it's a flip of a coin who can nail it for the day, and that's where it's going to be. That first and second is very, very close. So I'm excited to witness this and see it firsthand, and to see how much the judges make them work for it, because I know that they're going to turn them time and time again and make sure that they get that 100%. In third, fourth, I'm going to go a little bit different here, and I'm going to say Ethan's going to get third. I just feel, I know this is going to upset you older boys. I just feel he's got a little bit more nicer flow to his physique. It looks that, that lat spread that you've pulled up is very flowy, very tapered. Whereas if Andrew's a little bit blocky, I know he's going to hate me for saying that as well, but it's just that preference from going from bodybuilding and trying something new. So I would have to say first and second would be Jordan or Yusuf, third Ethan, and fourth Andrew.
Mike, your call?
Yeah, it's hard to go past Andrew from the picture that you see there, but yes, I agree that just that maybe an inch smaller in the waist would give him a much nicer flow to his physique, a much nicer shape. I think if you're saying Yusuf's going to come in tighter condition, I think you're right. I think he'll probably take it if he can come in a little bit tighter, and then potentially Jordan. Again, third and fourth flip of the coin. Andrew has got a really nice thin waist and shape, but Ethan's got a really nice thin waist and great shoulders and upper body there. Andrew's carrying a lot more muscle, so it might come down to the condition with those two.
Puts me on the spot, doesn't it? Look, I agree. I think it's going to come down to Yusuf and Jordan. And really, for me, it's going to come down to who wants it the most. And I know how hard Jordan's, how much work he's put in and how much he's thrown at it. So he's thrown 110%. If Yusuf does the same, it's going to be a heck of a battle. So like you, Tom, I can't call that one. It's going to come down to those two. I'm sort of leaning towards Andrew. I really like Andrew's physique in third place, and I think with a little bit more size in some areas, Ethan, potentially is a future winner. But that's how I'm going to pick him. So between Jordan and Yusuf for the first place there. Right, we'll move on to what we love and know, the open bodybuilding, and this is going to be a tough one. So we've got Dom. I apologise, Dom, for calling you Don, but Dom, Nick, Daniel, Anthony, and Paris. So they appear to be the top five. We don't know. There could be someone else that sort of shows up out of the woodwork. But we'll start with you on this one, Mike.
I'm going to go Paris if he comes in condition. If he comes in looking like the photos we've seen where he's just a little bit smooth, then I'll go Anthony. Then probably Daniel in third, Don and Nick fourth and fifth.
Where you at, Tom?
Very much like Mike, I'm going to say, because you've always got to back the big boys when you're a big boy. Paris first. I feel like this is his year. He's put his head down and he's really gone to work. And I'd be over the moon to see him finally crack that number one spot. And, it would be something that he's really earned. But if he comes in a little bit smooth, if he doesn't quite nail everything, Anthony is right behind him on his heels. And he's there. So for me, I would go Paris first. Unless Daniel comes in a lot leaner than this photo, I'm going to say Daniel will be third and Anthony second. The other two boys, yes, they are there, but they're not pushing that boundary to be those, those ones like we've been talking about Paris, Anthony all year. It's going to be interesting to see them. These guys just need a little bit longer to develop. And to the guys who don't take that overall, you know, it's not the end of the world. I know they both live and breathe the sport, so it's just that fuel for next year. Hopefully they're smart. Instead of getting disgruntled with the judges, go on, find out what the judges think, what they need to work on, and come back next year with a game plan and put it into effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm going to look at it, and I just think Nick's going to get outsized in that lineup because, you know, there's a lot of mass up there. I think Don probably somewhere sitting down, you know, so I'm probably going fifth Nick, Don fourth, depending on condition. Dan, look, if he comes in really lean, you know, he's going to be a good third, and on any other year, potentially he could have won it if he gets his conditioning spot on. But look, like everyone, I think we're talking Anthony and Paris now. Really, again, another tough one because Anthony's a very, very close friend of mine. And I know he's going to nail his conditioning. He sort of sitting at the moment between being a really sharp 212 and an open bodybuilder. But Paris has got that look that just says, I'm going to be a pro bodybuilder. You know, to me, I look at Paris and think this guy is a guy who's going to make a good pro bodybuilder in the future, as will Anthony, but with more time. However, if Paris comes in 2% off, Anthony's going to beat him. You know, so I think it's going to be a real dogfight, and I think the judges are going to work the hell out of them, and you know, it'll be a case of needing to do things like control your stomach. You know, make sure you got that under control because you're going to be doing, you know, pose after round after round, and those two are going to be up there every time. You know, my heart says Anthony, but if Paris can nail his conditioning and come in as hard as Anthony, I think with his superior size, he could take this one. So, again, 50-50, leaning towards Paris if he gets his conditioning. If Paris doesn't, we know Anthony's got the conditioning. Anthony could be winner. If either of these guys took it, I'd be absolutely wrapped, and I know it's going to be one of them. So it's a win-win for me, and something I'm really looking forward to. Right. We'll just give it a bit of a wrap-up. For all the competitors that are travelling to Auckland, safe travels. For all those people that are getting up on stage, we really look forward to seeing you, and you know, we thank you for your efforts because you guys make the sport. So do the officials. So to Mo and his team, we look forward to it, and should be a real cracker of a year after a pretty tough year. So any last thoughts and comments here, guys?
I just want to say thanks again to Tom for coming on. I had a lot of good feedback on you being on last time, so thanks for joining us again. It's great to have your knowledgeable perspective from a very well-respected competitor locally.
Yeah, that's you know, I'm always around. Like I said, I'm always around to do them. I really like the idea of you guys giving back to the New Zealand bodybuilding and to the South Pacific. It's really, really good. My few last little bit of words to the competitors is don't stress on the day. It's going to be a very, very long day. Nationals are never short. Bring a pillow, bring some headphones. Do not get up every 10 minutes trying to look at yourself in the mirror. You're not going to change that much that quick. Sit down, relax, and just let the day go by. Control your variables. Control what you put in your mouth, what you drink. If you've done the hard yards and you've beaten yourself already, I know it sounds very cliche, but if you've beaten your last package, that's what you should be most happy with, is the slow and steady progression. Bodybuilding is never a sport where 1 year you go from nothing to something. It's year after year after year of slow progression is where you get to, and you boys will know this better than me. That's how we do it, and you just got to keep that in mind. So come out on Saturday, have fun. We'll be there to cheer you on and to, you know, give you some advice or some critique from our, you know, point of view. But I can't wait to see everyone. So I hope everyone brings 100%.
Awesome, guys. Look forward to seeing you all at the show.
You better get this posted quick then, Nate, if we've got advice for people who are competing in 2 days.
Absolutely. We'll do. Okay, guys, take care, and we'll see you all on Saturday.
See you guys.